Welcome to Thriving Your Love, a podcast where we will guide and help you improve your most precious relationships in life. This podcast is produced and hosted by certified emotionally focused therapist Claudio Vargas Silva, licensed marriage and family therapist, and Trisha Kim Walsh, also licensed marriage and family therapist. Welcome back, viewers and listeners, to Thriving Your Love with Trisha and Claudio. We have been so excited to finally get a podcast episode, and life just has gotten busy. So now we've got a new episode for you, and the focus is called How to Understand Controlling Behaviors. And I know the initial reaction that I had, Claudio, when you brought this topic up was I've faced and confronted many relationships that I've found to be very controlling in my life romantically. But then I had to slow it down and remember that there have been moments in the relationships where I have been controlling of the partner that was being controlling in the relationship. So this is a very complicated topic. So initially, I'm sure you read the topic and you can probably think of a partner, a family member, an employer. But I also want you as a viewer listener to be thinking about yourself in this. Get really curious and soften with a willingness to ask yourself, what do you do in those moments when you feel the initial control? And that we can either be in agreement because we care so deeply about the person of I'm wrong, they're right, I need to do everything I can to change. Or you can get, like most of us, angry, frustrated, and start to retaliate back. So we have a lot to discuss on it and a certain amount of time to get through it. So, Claudia, where do we begin on understanding how to understand controlling behavior in partnerships?
Yeah, I liked that you talked about yourself because this happened to me as well. And it still happens. We are always growing because we want so much to have some influence in the people we love, right? We would like that they would listen to us, they would like validate us. And when we don't have that, sometimes we can fight for that. We can insist because we want to be heard. We want to feel important. We want to feel that we have some meaning to the other person. But we can go overboard this and we can become also controlling. And something that happens is that, for example, when we have someone who is very controlling and then we want that person to change and then we don't realize that we actually are controlling them. So I noticed with a client, like a young woman, that she was telling me about her dream of maybe becoming a social worker because she liked helping people.
Yeah.
And then she told me about like a boyfriend with some problems.
Hmm.
She told me about a brother with some problems and that she was trying to give them advice and she loved giving them advice. And then I told her about the pitfalls of that. So it's beautiful because you see a good heart wanting to make a difference, wanting to help people. And then, especially when you are like with your own family and you see how you have those good intentions and the other person doesn't accept that and sometimes even resent. And then you see that you think, well, this person should be grateful that I'm trying to help them, that I care about them, but the person doesn't feel grateful at all. The person is feeling controlled. It's feeling like you are trying to change me. I will prove to you that you are not going to change me. So we see this resistance, and it's sad that sometimes we have to accept that we cannot change people. It's even harder for them to change themselves, and for us, then it's gonna be. But some people, unfortunately, they try. They are in this battle that they want to change someone they love. and then they feel so unloved themselves. They feel taken for granted because in their heart they have the best intentions towards that person. And the thing, Trisha, is that it not only happens in romantic relationships, as I said, like for example, this girl with a brother. It happens for a child to change their parents, and actually it starts there with us as children trying to change the parent that we love to be a better parent, the parent that we would like to have, but also for parents to change their children, and it goes on and on, Trisha.
Right. Yeah, there's such a great point that you're making, Claudio, about this dynamic of a parental childlike relationship that I do hear often in my couples sessions around the time of dating where it felt so hot and heavy and exciting that they had a partner that was dominating, that was confident, that knew what they wanted, and that the other partner was like, I like this. I like this confidence. I like that they make decisions for us. I like that they take ownership to plan the date. I want a partner that is driven, a partner that has great leadership skills. So, in the beginning of that dating, that courtship, that honeymoon phase, where there's the excitement, there's the curiosity, there's the mystery, all of it feels good. And even in the moments of conflict where I disagree with it, but I really like this person, and that there's an idolizing, right? There is kind of an interesting dynamic of also that parental child role, that as a child you look up to your parent. You want your parent to make you safe. You do want to be with a partnership that makes you feel safe, that makes you feel protected. But there is a reminder that there's a dynamic of equality, is that when you're making decisions and as you get more confident and comfortable in the relationship, you also want to feel that there's a desire to be understood. And so that's a real key piece to understanding controlling behavior, is where one partner is unwilling to see the other partner's experience and perspective. That can start to feel self-centered. It can feel selfish. It can almost have qualities of narcissistic mannerisms of I know best for us. And that's where I really start to hear the ruptures that need repairs. That's sometimes when I see the initiation of therapy that will say is, we're starting to escalate more, Trish, with these terrible negative cycles where a decision has been made, or that the control is getting to a point where I don't get to have a voice. And if I do have a voice, there's a lot of pushback, and there can be a lot of punishment, as if there's even a disagreement. Disagreements are inherently not a negative thing. I encourage my couples to have disagreements because we're human. We're going to have different perspective. And actually, there's a beautiful evolution and transformative element to relationships by learning from each other, because we come from different backgrounds, different cultures, different socioeconomic status. So the more we're listening, the more we're learning, the better the partnership. But if one partner is, I know what's best, that does step into a parental role that can make a partner feel like a child, is I don't matter in this relationship. What once was sexy and exciting and great chemistry has now turned to, ooh, now I'm starting to resist this. This doesn't feel what it used to. In fact, it feels like there's only one person in this relationship, and I have to be the one to follow whatever they need in order for this to work.
Yes, Trisha, and we
Yeah.
have talked about this before, like when we have a parent that is like controlling or might have some anger issues. And in attachment theory, we learn that evolution has designed us so that we will always look up to that parent. We will always think that the parent is right. We will always think that if there is any problem, we have caused. We are wrong. We are not good children. So, in this case, that a child that very early has a parent that could be controlling, sometimes even violent, and the child looks up to that parent or idolizes that parent, when they have a partner that fits the criteria, that have those same traits, the person will feel attracted to that person. So there are even studies that show that they have, like, for example, someone who was raised by an alcoholic parent, and then they have like two different people talking to that person, and one is going to be very nice and kind, and the other one will be kind of aggressive, impolite, and the tendency most of the times is to like that person who was more aggressive and then wanting to change that person. So we see like how these go together, like feeling attracted and wanting to change that person. And then it starts this battle that becomes an obsession that the person wants at any cost to change that person and cannot accept that they don't have that power, right? And it's so hard. We know like how difficult it is for people who have these narcissist traits, or sometimes they are addicted to some substance. It's so hard to change that trait. And it's even harder if we from the outside are trying to change that person who owns the problem, right? Because now the person is feeling controlled by us and they want to assert their freedom to do whatever they want,
Right.
even though that thing that they want to do is hurtful to us. So then we see, like, for example, people in relationships, they try to get their partners to have therapy, their partners resist. They want their partners to attend to 12 steps meetings for substance, and their partners don't want to attend. And it's so hard because the person doesn't accept and keeps in that hope and giving advice and fighting, but cannot really kind of do something that is different. So we see that one person controls in a way and the other person controls in a different way, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's such a vicious dynamic. And as you were talking, Claudia, I was thinking, wow, you're talking about me because I grew up in that household dynamic with my father being an alcoholic, my mom being a social worker. And she was always giving advice and always trying to help. She was always like your client, she was trying to be gentle and a peacemaker. But there was this vicious cycle that happened for my parents where I watched the dynamic of the more she tried to control his drinking, the more he resisted of you're trying to change me and I'm just fine. I don't see the problem. I'm not the problem. You seeing this as a problem is the problem. So it's an interesting narrative when your definitions are different. And I spend so much time, not only in my household, trying to find out how to understand safety. Because in a loving, healthy relationship, which was what I was seeking for both my mom and dad, and also between the two of them, is the truth. And it's like, what is that truth, Claudia? Is like the truth is any kind of behavior that is controlling is hurtful. And there's a certain level of cruelty because recently, I'm sure everyone can kind of relate to this, is we've been trying to define what gaslighting is. Like that's become a term that people are using frequently. And in just the last few years have been really curious about how clients make meaning about gaslighting. And they usually bring it into the therapy room when it comes to their partner. And they'll often throw that in and say, this feels like gaslighting to me. And I'll be like, that's an interesting discussion about in these moments of the negative cycle that you're both in is I do believe you see this as your truth, that you are right. And what happens when both of you are so focused on the control that you're getting out of control. And then it's escalating with drinking or it's escalating with other problematic addictive behaviors. And so that gets really scary and dangerous because I think about the children like me that were witnessing this, trying to
Mhm.
understand what is a healthy relationship? Because I came out of that household loving my parents, proud of my parents, but saying, I don't want that relationship. I do not want to be married to someone that would ever treat me like this. I want a partner that when we have conflicts, we can go to a third party and we can say, therapist, minister, whoever your third party is help me understand what my part is in this. I need to get in control of the fact that I'm out of control when I'm
Mhm.
trying to control others, when the reality is the only person we really can control, right, Claudio, is ourselves. And that's to slow down to catch our breath and say, what's going on right now? That's why I love emotionally focused therapy because we slow it down and we focus on the emotions. Is I feel scared. I feel
Mhm.
worried. I feel hurt. I love staying in those moments. I love lingering in those moments because that's really what my dad needed to say is I'm scared. Financially, I feel like I'm out of control. And I just need to feel successful in a country where I'm an immigrant and I'm just trying to live the
Mhm.
American dream. And my mom knew that, but she couldn't talk
Mhm.
about it because she was scared of talking about it because it always caused him to get angry. So I'm giving a lot of these examples, Claudio, but really what I'm saying is often the control is not just in the behavior, but it's the fact that we feel out of control of our own emotions. And that is where I really get excited about the work with our clients because a lot of great insight can come from that.
Yeah, and something also that came to my mind that is very important for our listeners to see is the point of view of the child, because this child that is being raised in a situation like this, that's gonna grow up and will be affected by this relationship. Because, like, for example, you're talking about your experience. I remember about my experience too. Like, I was very young and having my parents at midnight or early in the morning fighting, and I like in the living room watching that and suffering so much and thinking how I can help, what can I do? And that's how it starts, right? Because like you said, you saw the problems between them, and then you in the middle seeing two people that you loved having those arguments, and then now you thinking about helping. What can I do? And taking responsibility for that in such an early age, right? So that's how I think that with me, I became in some way like addicted to helping people, having difficulty to accept that people have their choices, that I cannot really force them to change. It would be wonderful, right? If it would be wonderful if we said, if we told someone, well, I want to help you to change, the person would say, oh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful because I really want to change and I need someone to help me. But it doesn't happen like that, unfortunately, because people always have two sides, and sometimes this side that might have some narcissism in it, right? Or some addiction as well. And then it's very hard for that person to change. And it becomes hard for us to accept also that we cannot change the world the way we would like, right? So, but what we see is like that people, they enter sometimes in relationships. That's how I was young. When I was young, I was so naive in this aspect because I really had a belief that people could change so easily, that that love could change. And sometimes people enter in these relationships, and we see sometimes the obsession from the very beginning that you are entering a relationship, that someone who has problems, you don't want to see, to accept that the person has problems. A lot of people might be telling you about the problems of that person, but you are excusing the person, and then you enter that relationship. So we see the obsession, the controlling already there, that you cannot accept that sometimes things cannot work because you are so in love. And at the beginning, the fact is that there is the love booming, especially people with some kind of problems. They are very intense at the beginning and it feels really wonderful. But at the same time, we want to give hope to people. And something that I tell clients, Trisha, is that when I see that they have this need to change the other person, and I tell them the only person, or actually the first person you need to work on is yourself. And one thing that I see here that maybe is very important is your need to change the other person. That is something that you need to work on yourself. And that's where you can start and accept that you don't have the power, and you cannot force the other person to change.
Right, beautiful. Claudio, I don't have a lot more to add to that because I think you did a mic drop right there. But I will say is I really appreciated you using the concept love bombing because it is something that I'm hearing the younger folks saying these days, and I think it's so true to what happens in this dynamic of desperation to be loved, receive love. And that's what we wanted as kids, right? Is we really wanted our parents to be proud of us. And we are proud to be their child, or at least we want to be. And so part of the controlling is I just want to feel safe. I want to be seen. I want to be valued. So I hope as we're coming to the close, and my guest, Claudio, as we usually do, is we'll have more to say about this in future episodes. So if this resonated with you and you would like to hear more of it, please send us a message. We love hearing from you. Let us know if there's a topic that you're eager to hear us talk more about. We're trying to get out on social media a little bit more, so we also appreciate any videos that you especially have appreciated hearing from our podcast. And we're going to be bringing out more to come in this summer months. So thanks for tuning in, and we hope that you found this as beneficial as we do talking about it on how to understand controlling behavior. Thanks, everyone, and great to have you all here. Be safe and well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in with us today. We hope you'll join us soon again for our next episode of Thriving Your Love.